call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. This is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2016. The North Andover Board of Health. Our meeting is now called to order. Our first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no public hearings tonight. We have our last minute meetings from May the 24th. Larry, you have those before you. Those have been circulated. If there are no other comments, we'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
Move to accept.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Larry, you can sign those either now or later at your option. We can call, so we have no particular old or new business under our agenda. We have a couple items listed under communications and some other things we may choose to discuss a little bit, germane to the time of the year, but on the formally listed agenda, we do show the revised Board of Health meeting schedule for the remainder of the year 2016. So again, this has been circulated around and I think actually already posted, correct, Lisa? So we've, for the remainder of the year, move back to Thursday nights, but we'll be in the police department. So do we need to vote on this, Brian, do you think, or just accept it as a consent agenda? Or
accept it as a consent agenda, or you could do a vote on it, whichever one you choose.
Well, I think this has all been accepted by everybody, so we can just take a quick vote again. If somebody could move to accept the revised meeting schedule for the remainder of this year. But could I ask before we do that, do I remember, wasn't the town hall supposed to be completed about October of this year? Do we know anything about the deadline of that and being able to move back?
We should be able to move back, but in lieu of not knowing when we're going to be moving in, what the audio video system is going to be like when we first move back in, how long it's going to take to get set up, let's do this now. If we need to change it for one meeting at the end of the year, that's no problem. That's still something that we can do,
Okay.
just by changing the location. But set the dates. We're all happy with the dates and the time. We can change the location once town hall is done. I wouldn't want to publicize that it's going to be a town hall and town hall not be ready, and then have to do another publication or advertisement that it's somewhere else.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I move that we accept the schedule changes as printed
Second.
and distributed.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we have before us also, Brian very nicely collated some Board of Health priorities that we had talked about and had been sent in by some of the members for the past few months. So we have that here before us. There's a list of 15 different items. And again, I don't know that we need to make a hard and fast list tonight, but we could maybe go through this a little bit and think about some stuff that might be kind of low-hanging fruit that we could handle hopefully relatively easily, and things that would require a little bit more of a project-type process. So, Frank, you were the first one to submit some items, so maybe you want to kind of start with the process?
Sure. We have I don't know if this is available to the public watching on television, but we have a list of 15 items here, some of which each one of us has brought to the forefront. I'll go with I think the first one that I put in there is a rental inspection prior to renting. One thing that we had talked about over the past few years was providing a Board of Health pre-rental inspection that would basically protect both the renter and the landlord by saying that the rental property met the current housing code. And this would be something that I think could be done at a nominal cost. and could be done in such a way that perhaps we could start off as voluntary. I would think that somebody would want to make sure that their property would meet the housing code and not be liable to callous accusations that it wasn't. So this would be something I think that would improve the housing stock in North Andover and protect both the renter and the landlord. Something we ought to consider. Other cities do this, I'm told. I don't know that from personal experience, but some of the testimony from prior meetings indicated that Boston has one, and perhaps even Haverhill has a pre-inspection program.
Lawrence and Methuen also have them as well.
So there you go.
So they are local. Landlords are familiar with them. We do get calls from time to time with landlords asking if we do have that program, because they're going to be renting something out and just want to check. So this is completely up to you guys. I know this has been discussed in the past. It hasn't gone anywhere yet, but it is something that is doable, depending on what the board wants to do. It is something that can be done with the local regulation. If the Board of Health or the Board of Selectmen can do one. It would be as simple as landlords just being educated. Call us up, we come out, we do a quick check. We give them something in terms of a certificate of occupancy from the health department, not the building department. And then they're free to rent their property, or it's just a courtesy check if that's how you want to start this process in this program. So whatever you guys think is, prudent, you guys want to be looking to further, I can definitely start the process on that. So I know there's a whole bunch of different items here. I think that's definitely a big one and something that can be done.
Well, that's what we've been dealing with this year, too, that some of the rental housing has not been up to code.
Right.
And so it's been an issue each year in front of the board. And most of the time, it's the single-family homes or duplexes that I've gone to. I think the big apartment complexes have their own forms, I believe, that you sign off, that the renter and the landlord sign off on that everything is in this particular type condition.
I think for some of the bigger complexes, they have a more formal process than some of the owner-occupied 2 families, 3 families, or landlords that have some of these smaller buildings, that they don't have a management company, they don't have somebody on site at all times, they don't have a leasing or a renting office. It gets into a little bit more time-consuming for somebody that does just own property but work somewhere else versus working and living there.
Well, it's going to avoid some of the situations that we've been exposed to this year, and some of them have not been good at all. And the one that gets hurt is the renter.
Yes.
So I think it's a very good idea.
Well, yeah, and I hear your point. I was thinking of it more as a proactive thing that the health department would do rather than, we do certainly have our enforcement mandate, but we are also trying to bring something that's more proactive forward.
Well, this proactive
Exactly.
would
So
wipe out a lot of these, I hope, a lot of these issues.
Exactly. I don't think it would obviate the need for the enforcement part, but
No.
Hopefully we would encourage a culture of proactively making sure things are in the right condition for rental and providing that service. Perhaps if people knew that it was available, they would take advantage of it. I'm not sure that we need to have a mandatory program yet. I'm not sure how much interest there is in it. But I think, to me, to start off with a voluntary program, I think would be the right speed and see how it develops and see how much use of it is. And, I'd like to kind of keep it on the proactive side rather than the enforcement side. That would be my preference.
And it's a great opportunity for us to go and meet with the landlord to explain some of the housing code.
Exactly.
And some of the requirements that they're responsible for and what the tenant's responsible for, because there are differences, and sometimes landlords and tenants don't know that. So they get into conflicts and they get into issues between each other, and then sometimes we get called in when things are past a certain point that they should actually get to, with repairs, maintenance, cleanliness, sanitary, trash pickup. There's a whole bunch of different things that we deal with when people don't know their own responsibilities.
Right.
So would voluntary, would there be a fee involved, since voluntary or mandate, we still have to go out there?
Well, no, of course there would be a fee, but they'd be getting value for their fee.
Very much so.
So,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I don't think anybody has to work for free except for me, but I wouldn't ask that of anybody else.
Brian, can you have this done by tomorrow?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, and so I tend to agree on a voluntary, because when you make something mandatory, then that raises up a lot of questions of enforcement and what if this and that. So I think, like you say, a voluntary is a good speed, but my thought would be, how can we best show a benefit? Is there some way other than, you know, a certificate? If someone is going out and advertising that they have a space available, do we have a seal of approval? Sort of what is, other than sort of educating? I mean, if a landlord has bought a house and is preparing to rent it, you don't always have an opportunity to meet with a landlord and a potential tenant at the same time, and we all only have, the department only has so much resource. I think your first point of contact is with the landlord, and educate them on their responsibilities and check the building and so on. What's the product at the end of that? I mean, thinking if there isn't a requirement enforcement that says you can or you cannot, how do we get them to the point that it is a benefit to them other than
I mean, they would get a
evaluate?
certificate, and they can use that knowing that it's been inspected, everything meets code. It could be something that makes the tenants a little bit more apt to rent from them if they do have these certificates. Could go along those lines. I'm not really sure what role that would actually play in being able to rent an apartment. But I mean, it would be, it's been looked at, everything meets code. The landlord feels better about it, knows that there's nothing wrong with their apartment. Tenants going into an apartment would know that everything is fixed, everything is appropriate, everything works, and they're not going to run into any issues in a month when they turn the heat on and it doesn't work, and it's 40 degrees out. So I guess it's up to them if we do a voluntary program to say, you know what, I want to get my stamp of approval and my certificate from the health department. At least I know that I've done what I'm supposed to do, and hopefully it kind of snowballs.
But that certificate or that stamp, we'll call it, is at a static point in time. I think we want to be careful that doesn't give leverage to one party or the other. That, like you say, that we've done an inspection, say everything's okay on point XYZ, and then 6 months down the road, whatever is a problem, the heat doesn't work, or there's a hole in the ceiling, or this or that, the landlord doesn't say, well, look, the health department said I was good 6 months ago, so you broke it. It can't be a certificate that says they're good forever. It's kind of at a given point in time.
Right. It would just be for that snapshot, that given point in time when the tenant moves in, everything works. They can't call us up in a month and say, when I moved in here, there was no heat, and now I'm not paying my rent. We say, well, actually, we were there. The heat did work. We did test it. The gas was turned on, the stove worked, the heat worked, everything. We will have your landlord fix the heat, however, but at least we know that we were there and it did work at one point. If it does break, the landlord does have to fix it. But at least the tenant can't claim that it never worked, or they moved in and none of the windows worked, or the screens were all ripped.
So
It does.
as of this date, this inspection was done and certified to be within the housing code for rental, as of this date. That's the
Correct.
snapshot.
Yep, that's a snapshot. Things break. Apartments need maintenance and repairs all the time. But at least if we know that it was fixed when we went there first, then we know that it broke while they were there. The landlord still has to fix it. It's still their responsibility. And then we basically take it from there with the enforcement aspect of it. But if landlords are going to be proactive enough to get the certificate, I think they're going to be more apt to maintain their assets and their apartments.
And so I'm just kind of thinking worst case scenario so we don't get ourselves in trouble. If we go into, again, a place and find violations of one sort or another, and we've kind of called them major and minor violations, and we find problems, and we've been in this kind of situation before where the landlord maybe doesn't agree with findings of our team, and they've done a voluntary inspection, how, and this is kind of something to be kind of thought out through the staff, I think, but what, they've done an inspection of the code, of the housing and habitation code, and found problems, then even though it's voluntary at that point, then they're prevented from being able to rent until the problems are fixed, correct?
They would have to fix those problems, correct?
Okay.
So, I mean, that is.
And
kind of
so presently, there
catch-22.
is nothing like that. I mean, there's a building inspection, a building has to be up to that, but right now, we don't have any, there's no housing and habitation inspection except for really complaint-based.
Exactly, it's all complaint-based. The building department will give them a certificate of occupancy when the building is finished and completed from construction or renovations or anything like that. But once you get that and they move in, then it could be eons before any town staff actually go back into that building.
Okay.
So definitely something to think about, and it's something that I think it's great to have on our priority list to look into, and I can start that process now. I know there's 14 other things here.
Right.
Right.
Can I take another crack, and then I'll yield the discussion to somebody else? Item 10, this is an item that I had written about. I'd written a Valley Patriot article about CPR and AED training as part of the middle school health curriculum. So it turns out that middle schoolers are physically large enough, and they're smart enough to understand when somebody is in extremis and somebody is unresponsive. And I think it's a good age that we potentially could ask our school department to look at to see if it could be incorporated. And I'm not into creating a new mandate or anything like that, but these sorts of things can pay big benefits to individuals who are going to be our friends and neighbors. And I saw a couple of anecdotal stories that were really amazing. There was one case that was reported on network television in Texas about a 13-year-old girl who basically performed bystander CPR on her parent and basically preserved his circulatory state until EMS arrived. Obviously, they're going to take some number of minutes to arrive. Every one of those minutes is important that there's circulation. There's about 5 to 10 minutes worth of oxygen in the blood, and if they can keep that moving through, you're going to limit the amount of damage that occurs, and you're going to improve the ability of somebody to survive intact and not as an invalid.
Right.
And I saw another one where there was again, these are anecdotes, but essentially one partner in a married couple was stricken with a sudden cardiac arrest, and the other spouse immediately started performing CPR. And the child, who had been taught in school how to do it, said, "You're doing it wrong," and showed him how to do it more effectively. So it's not necessarily even the child necessarily doing the performance, but having the knowledge out in the community that potentially could make a big difference between life and death, living in the community, living in a nursing home. Again, I don't think that we should do anything other than just kind of raise the awareness and request that the school committee give some thought and consideration to it. And of course, they would have their discussion with the people who create curriculum, and I'm not sure who that would be, but I think that it's something that a town like North Andover should really consider. We've got a great school system. We have a health curriculum. I think this jives really well with what we would like to get out of that health curriculum. We want to teach these kids lots of things. We also want to teach them things that are practical, and maybe they might have a chance to use it.
Okay.
So that was something that I thought we could also bring up as proactive.
Okay. I know of a former board member who works for the school department now I could reach out to. Cheryl?
Mm-hmm.
I could give her a call.
Yeah, I think that would be a great starting point. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
definitely.
the curriculum develops fluently and over time and is an evolving process, so I think that's honestly, my kids didn't go to the middle school here, so I can't tell you what the health curriculum is like in North Andover.
Mm-hmm.
You have a bit more exposure. I don't know if there's any first aid exposure at all, or sort of what they get in the middle school in North Andover, so
Well,
certainly something
Yeah.
valuable, yeah.
And the other thing that makes it very interesting is that the CPR protocols have been actually they've been modified. So now there's, especially for bystanders, it's compression only. So there's no rescue breathing. So you can teach this to just about anybody.
Yeah.
And they teach them to the Bee Gees song "Staying Alive." That's 100 beats per minute. And maybe we'll need to start playing that disco beat again to get the kids used to it, because it might not be on their playlists. But
All right. That's a good one.
but it has become so easy and so simple, and it turns out that it's so effective, especially when it's performed by a bystander immediately at the first sign of unresponsiveness, that I think it's really a place that we could target. We get a lot of bang for our buck, I would believe.
Mhm.
And I yield the floor back to the chairman.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, you'd sent a few in. Why don't you take it from there, maybe, in terms of...
Okay, I'm not
Comments?
going to, there's no need to review all of these, but I've been involved in restaurant inspections, and there was just a serve-safe certificate scandal in Lawrence. So ServSafe really is a program that restaurant people, anybody that handles food has to go through. And it teaches you how to handle food properly, how to cook it properly, how to store it, and basic sanitary conditions, a little about bacteria that can be inside of meat or fruits and vegetables that, if not properly cooked or properly washed, that can affect us. So these ServSafe certificates are very important. I think we have a minimum of one
Per code.
and somebody has to be on, somebody with a ServSafe certificate, ServSafe certified, has to be on shift at all times. All right.
Yeah.
So my thought was, it works, but I think the more, the better, because I still find people, when I go into restaurants or supermarket or whatever, not following proper procedure. And I will say something, because it would be wrong not to say something.
Right.
But I think that we should look at, and I have no idea how many per establishment. Some are very small, might be 3 people that run it, and of course some are very large too. I don't know how many I would recommend now, but I think we need to increase it. We're not trying to cause a hardship on people, but I think the better informed the employees are that handle food, the happier the restaurant world will be,
Yeah.
especially the people that
And the
eat there.
patrons.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because it's still a problem out there.
A couple comments on that, sort of a round table kind of thing here.
Yeah.
When we did that ServSafe program last year, I forget now, how do we fund that? Did that come out of one of our revolving funds?
Yep.
So that seemed to go over pretty well. You went to it, right?
I went.
How many people?
Joe did, probably about, let's see, when I went, it's about 25 people went. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And I could hear people were talking during a break and even during the meeting. They said, "Gee, I didn't know any of this." I mean, it was eye-opening for most people when you talk about bacteria and how bacteria can multiply and cause harm, produce toxins in the body if they're not gotten rid of.
Killed by cooking.
Absolutely.
I think what was done before was the revolving funds helped augment and supplement some of the costs associated with it, but there was still a small nominal fee for each person, just because it is a national certification and an exam that you have to take and get sent off and scored by the testing company. So there is a fee associated with that the town didn't pay for, but the town did get that cost down and did pay for the instructor and things like that. So that's something I can definitely look into.
I think the cost was basically for the book.
Yes.
and the test.
They
I
charge
seem
you
to
for
remember
materials.
$25 or $30.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of money.
Thank you.
I thought it was
but-
50, but I could be wrong.
Again,
I
sort of
can
in
look
terms
into that, but
of,
it's still cheaper than if they had to do it on their own. So sponsoring another course like that again this year or coming up soon, I think is a great idea. I think.
And that was, were the attendees at that, Larry, mostly restaurant people as opposed
Absolutely.
to
No, they're restaurant.
someone who runs a church potluck every
Yeah.
3 times a year, or?
A lot of them were local restaurant people, which was wonderful to see.
Mhm.
So,
So on the restaurant topic, I've brought this up a little bit, and I know it was discussed in the Andover a couple years, but I've noticed for several years, when you go to New York City, restaurants get inspected there, but they get grades. And I was just there the last weekend, and I guess it's not required, but it's a voluntary posting of your grade. You can drive, going down Columbus Avenue, there's an A in certain restaurants in the front window, right when you go in the door. And you can go up and down, a lot of restaurants there, you'll see an A in a few. You don't ever see any B's or C's, but there are about maybe 20% of the restaurants, or 25, it looks like, are about an A, which to me looks like an incentive for them. And I know this is a health inspection because I've seen it written in the paper, that it's, again, an incentive for the restaurant to upgrade or sort of be in best compliance at the time of an inspection so they can show it off. And I remember maybe 2, maybe 3 years ago, Tom in Andover talked a little bit about that. They had a meeting about it. I don't know that it went very far, but to me that's kind of almost like this rental thing, like an incentive for a particular restaurant to be able to show off a little bit. Now, I don't know how, there's always a question with that of what's an A versus a B and so on, and how long does an A last. But I think we want to be a little careful about requiring all restaurants to have, say, 2 serve safes or whatever, because it then does put a cost on them.
They are required to have it by the federal food code and the state sanitary code, having certified food managers. So that's
Right,
already
but
there.
if we
Having additional
raise
ones.
that floor, then,
Okay. And I think the grading issue can be a little bit tricky because it's very subjective to whether you're an A or B depending on which violations you have. And it's only a snapshot. You're only there for a few hours during the inspection. If you see something, they don't get an A, but 99% of the time, they should have an A posted. They can feel either like they've been picked on or that they were harmed in some way by not getting an A, or the day you were there, they just cleaned and everything looked perfect and everything was put away, labeled, dated, held at the right temperature, and then the next day they let everything go to something in a handbasket, and they have an A posted on their window. It could give people a false sense of security, where if we're in there all the time, which we're trying to do, we've got to keep them on their toes. So the subjective grade and versus a false, it could be tricky, and it could get very political too, where if somebody goes in there, they get their inspection, they get a few things checked off, we don't give them an A, even though it's only, say, a few non-critical items, and it keeps them from getting an A, it could be difficult. It could be a difficult situation. Because then for the next 6 months, they don't have an A in their window. And they only had a couple of broken floor tiles that they were gonna fix. Or the gasket on the walk-in cooler ripped the day before. They're gonna get it fixed. But now they don't have that A for 6 months. That could get very difficult for staff. So that's one of the I've had meetings with this with area health directors for the past couple of years on this. We can do it, but just get ready for phone calls.
it just seemed like a good reward to me, but I get the point, and
It gets tricky when you don't give somebody an A and they think they deserve it. And they could be the best restaurant in town, but if you're there on those 2 hours you're there, and some person cross-contaminates something by accident, or it's a new food employee, and you see them literally handle raw chicken and then pick up something ready to eat, that is definite call for not getting an A. But the person's new, they just started, they're being trained, you gotta wait 6 months now for your A.
I think in Manhattan it's a little different because it's the people patronizing the
Yeah.
the restaurants there, a lot of them, not all, a lot of them from out of town. People patronizing North Andover restaurants are going to be more or less from the Merrimack Valley. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you're not going to get people
Mhm.
coming from Ohio to go to our restaurants.
Some of the
Not
towns,
often, but sometimes.
Well, they will, but exactly.
But so if you want to do it, we can definitely look into,
No,
How many
I just
else
think
does
it
it?
just has always struck me as
definitely.
an excellent
I think
reward. I
it's
get the
a
down
wonderful
part of it.
idea. I mean,
Okay.
I go by the letter too.
But I think looking at the Serve Safe program again and
Yeah.
promoting the value of that to restaurants, I think probably is, again, our best and easiest and sort of perception-wise, maybe the best way to do it. Again, we've been through this before, requiring more places. Well, if you have a place that's a pizza place that doesn't have, I mean, and we've been around this before, where they have employees that change around a lot. Maybe there's only one person that's the ongoing employee for 5 years, and we say you have to have 2 Serve Safes on a shift. That can be
Right.
a big cost to them, but
Okay.
to promote the value of it, I think is great.
If we can offer to them for a discount and for a town-sponsored class,
I mean,
I think that's maybe the way to
think-
go.
If we could do that twice a year, that would be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
It's worth every penny,
Okay.
especially if you have the full-time employees go, because the manager might be Serve Safe certified, but if some of the full-time people that do all the prep and everything else aren't,
Mhm.
they're not gonna
Right.
understand.
Right.
And it's,
And they're the ones that are doing the cross-contaminating, and they're doing the prep work.
right.
And then sometimes if they're not trained.
And if the manager's not watching, it's a waste of time.
Right.
It's a waste. And if we go to the ABCD, I'm canceling my phone. That's it.
But yeah, I can definitely look into that more, Tom. I looked into it a couple of years ago with Tom and Susan and a few other of our colleagues in the area, just to see what it was all about and see how we could work it. But our concern was it would get political, and it would get tumultuous sometimes when you don't give people what they think they deserve.
Well, Lisa's the one that answers the phone. That's why she gets the big bucks, right?
Yeah.
Some towns post their inspection reports in view of the public as they come in, or with somewhere within the restaurant. I think Reading does.
Okay.
I remember seeing a clipboard full of inspection reports. I believe it's Reading, but that's another option,
I can look
I
into it.
guess. I don't know who else does it. I haven't looked into it, but this is just the discussion part.
Well, my mother lives in Central Texas, near Austin, and she says that they print the restaurant inspections in the local newspaper.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
I seem to remember we used to do that here a long time ago, well before my time. I remember seeing inspection reports.
Did we?
Did we ever?
I've been in town since 1990, but you've been in town longer than me.
I don't remember.
I'm not
that.
sure. Maybe it's just when there's a violation.
You guys got copies of some of the good ones.
Let me tell you, as far as violations go, Tom, you go back years and years and years, the three of us, and we haven't had a restaurant in front of us for a long time. Long time. We've had them before us previously, but it's been a long time, and that's good.
I think part of it is the continued inspections
Yeah.
helps. It's when you have issues with understaffing and not having the resources to do multiple inspections per year, things get kind of slip a little bit. And then when you do go back in, you're like, whoa, okay, there's a problem here. And if you're not on top of them, some places may tend to slip. So part of the ongoing inspection program is, I think, a definite contributor to maintaining everything that we are seeing now, and the lack of administrative enforcement being brought before you
Good.
and the public.
Good. Let's see. We don't want to go over all of these. I do have a question for you. Thompson Brothers Performance. What's going on with that? I'm not aware of an issue.
They're better.
What was the
There
problem?
were a number of weeks where we just didn't get trash pickup, recycling pickup, and Depends on what time of the year, but when the winds are strong, it will blow things over. Animals would go out and get into the trash and things like that. Made a few, apparently there is a reporting mechanism on the town website that I was made aware of. And I've had a couple of phone calls with the town manager. Problem seems to be doing better.
I don't remember not getting trash, because, I mean, I've seen one-day delays where I live, but I've never heard.
It seems to be pretty geographically focal,
It seems to be in the precinct 4, because we're kind of like out on the edge of town
around
here.
Frank's house.
But it also includes some other people like David Teresi, who's on the school committee, and Andrew McDevitt, who's on the school committee, and so we all have the same kvetching session. It's,
Okay.
It seems to be doing better.
Oh, that's good. I never had a problem, so it's,
Well,
you can always bring your trash over to my house.
Trash is out for 2 days. You
Yeah.
know. The problem is that the wind blows it over and the animals get into it. And I was just looking at an interesting thing written by, it might have been in the Wall Street Journal, about getting bear-proof trash receptacles. And so in some parts of the country where there are bear, and it's not that far from here, Maine, New Hampshire, but more places like out west and things like that, if you don't secure your trash, they come around and they fine you.
So the
'Cause
lids
what you
must
do is
lock down.
You're inviting a nuisance animal into
Yeah.
the community who's going to be foraging for a place to eat. Now with us, it's more like raccoons and crows and skunks and things like that. But it's still, it just, if your trash day is a certain day, they should come and pick it up.
That's what's going on. Okay, thank you. I had no idea.
So if you need me to look into anything further with that, just let me know.
Yeah.
There was something that you had on there, so I wanted to add it to the discussion.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things got added on about 2 months ago, and so we
It was over the
haven't-
course of the summer.
Yeah, we haven't
Yeah.
met in a while, so some of them may have morphed.
Okay.
Number 3, I guess it would be a health issue, depending upon where you step, but a doggy station at town center and anywhere else it might be. People go to a dog park and walk their dog or something. A lot of dogs are walked down the old center, and
Yeah, up in the various places and around the lake, I don't remember what group it is that's put some of those up, but there's no reason that we couldn't choose to fund one, what do you say, sort of in the old center area. Every once in a while I used to see one in a little article when they were put up.
yeah.
I think it was Half Mile Hill or around by the lake somewhere, that a local trails group or something put up one of those kind of things. It's a matter of buying the stand, getting it installed, and then continually, as many other things are, it's the maintenance, keeping the bags in the container.
Yeah, I mean, I threw this out just as another, I'm down the old center walking a lot, and people walk their dogs, a lot of dogs down the old center, and some people aren't good neighbors.
That's unfortunate, because it's a nice comment that a lot of people enjoy.
Right.
I can definitely look into that. I don't know how much they are or where you get them, but I can definitely look into it. I know that was on here, so maybe we could discuss it and see what you want to do. Or
Yeah.
if you guys know where to get them, or who got the other ones? The Trails Committee?
I might start there or through DPW. Maybe a Trails Committee bought them and DPW installed them. I remember when you put it on your list, I remembered something like, it's been a couple years, so I can't give you specifics offhand, but
Okay.
I'd be bet at something like that.
And I'm only going to mention one more I sent in. Joe's very knowledgeable, being an engineer, and water purity has definitely been in the news with all the problems that have been around the nation. So maybe we should have somebody. I've talked to the water department, very nice.
Okay.
They have a part-timer that comes in. I don't know if she's a microbiologist or she does, I don't know what she does, but somebody comes in 2 days a week to do the analysis and whatever I have no idea what they do.
Okay.
But
I can invite
I talked to them just in general, and they just were very receptive. I didn't invite them or anything
Sure.
like that, but I thought it might not be a bad idea that if people do watch these meetings, they get an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Lead, the heavy
Yes.
metals and so forth, and, what is allowed in the water, what is not allowed in the water, tolerances and so forth.
Right. Yep. Okay.
Well, I think even an easier thing and something we could do more quickly than that is number 2, talking about a brochure or an informational article to be distributed. Now, when our tax bills go out, remember there's it's usually a 2-page or sometimes a 1-page newsletter that goes with it that has little blurbs from the various departments, and we've had, Susan, Debbie has written a couple things, like at times when there were vaccine issues, and we may have had a mosquito thing in there. And I remember at the time when they started doing, they were asking departments for, again, they were 2 or 3 paragraph things. Somebody talked here about information of how to handle your septic, and we can't send this focus to people around septic, but obviously there's septic throughout town, so
Yep.
we could have, it goes with the tax bill, not with the water bill. That would not match what we wanted. But in the tax bill, in that newsletter, we could get in something about taking care of your septic, and
Yeah.
kind of a bullet point maybe of what are the rules and what are best things to do to keep it up for a long
I
time.
think what we could do, we have everything on our website already, but maybe directing people to that website for all the information on how to maintain your system, inspections, pumping, maintenance of your system is very, very important. So maybe just directing them to the website, saying, if you have a septic system, please visit, the town website, go to the health department, and look at all this information.
And on the printout, like what Tom said, when I get that printout, I read it. I want to see what's going on.
Well, you could
Okay.
put a top 5 in the article and kind of get a
Yes.
teaser,
Yeah.
and then say for more information on
Okay,
these
yeah,
5
right.
or more extensive
Mhm.
information, go to www, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Because they come and they give us testimony as to why the septic system's failed. A lot of we're here listening to testimony
Yes.
as to what is wrong,
Yep.
what happened. And
Of
I
course.
remember, was it earlier in 2000, this year? The part of the testimony was they kept pouring paint down the sink, or that'll just destroy the system,
To make it
Yes.
look interesting inside.
Psychedelic.
One thing we could do is maybe even think about doing an individual mailer to houses that are on, that have their own septic system and not on town sewer. That's an individual
Is that
brochure.
doable?
I could look into it.
Yeah.
I could obviously check the number of houses that we'd have to mail to, and the cost associated with that. It could be a lot more than adding in something to the tax bill, but sending something in the tax bill to the entire community when half is on sewer is also a way. It's kind of they kind of offset each other.
Right.
Doing all of the, I don't know if they charge extra for inserts in the tax bill. I haven't looked into it that far yet, but usually what it is, if you add something into a bill, there's a surcharge because you have to get the paper, print it, stuff the envelope, and that added weight and cost, I think, is actually tacked onto it. So you're looking at a charge for doing that to every single house, which may offset just sending out to half the houses an individual mailing. That would be targeted to people with an actual septic
Well,
system.
but I've seen sometimes those newsletters come out with a lot of white space on them.
Okay.
I mean, you can look into doing a targeted mailing, but I would guess, the town purchases the paper for a short newsletter, and whether we have 2 more paragraphs in it or not is still a matter that
Right.
they're looking for the information,
Okay.
so.
And I haven't looked into this yet. This is just for discussion. I'm just throwing some options out there. I can look into it all and come back with a few recommendations. And maybe this winter, you get something written up and sent out in the next year's tax bill.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a good idea, and I think stuff like that is also good for other things as well. I know cities and towns have done emergency planning newsletters to put into the tax bills about being prepared at home for power outages, extra medication, things like that that could have, winter tips and safety for space heaters, for if your power goes out or if the gas goes out, things like that. So other towns and cities have done the same type of thing with all different types of topics. So you don't have to limit it to just top 5. You can do anything you want if there's something that you feel strong enough to get out to the entire community.
Number 11 is something that I think you mentioned at one of our last meetings, that you wanted to talk with the new police chief and sort of have a conversation about the truck regulation monitoring and that. And wasn't it a while ago the RFID sign or whatever got damaged in a storm? Did that get repaired?
It
Or?
is repaired. I actually talked to the programming company that does the actual programming of it, and we're supposed to be getting together with the person who wrote the program to sit down and kind of teach me how to use it and teach me how to do everything, and then set up a quote-unquote test where we bring the signboard somewhere, park it, and then let it run for a day and get all the trucks coming by that have the RFID tags on them, and then analyzing the spreadsheet and kind of going through and making sure it works. But we are looking into hopefully rolling this out sooner rather than later. I guess the damaged signboard or the RFID reader kind of set things back for a pretty good chunk of change. And time-wise too, having to get a new unit completely and get it reprogrammed. So something that I think we should definitely look into. And I haven't met with the new police chief yet, but I will definitely reach out. One of the things that we have started to do is talk about emergency planning with the fire department and different things that we're responsible for and they're responsible for. So I think we're going to start working as an emergency management team with police, fire, health, emergency management, and kind of expanding what we've already started this past month. So it's going to be a good topic to bring up when I do talk to them next.
Right, we had, I think I can't remember if I put this in there, but we had all been trained in incident command
Yep.
certification. I think I did mine 8 or 9 years ago.
Through the FEMA modules that were available.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's been a while.
Yes, that's.
I'm not sure how well we would perform if there was an incident, and these things unfortunately are unpredictable. We've got a major college in town, and we've got venues, the high school sports venue. There are places where, potentially could be soft targets for bad things to happen.
So I did add that as number 13. It's ICS training. I think if you guys want me to get somebody in here to do a refresher or even do the courses over again, just because it's been so long.
When we first did it, who in the fire department was a trainer and did it with us?
It was
Barry?
Andy?
I thought it was the chief. I ended up doing mine online because I couldn't attend the session.
Well, no, some of them you'd had to do in person, some were online. There were 5 or 6 different ones.
One we had to do the firehouse, went for part of the day. It's just been too long. I don't
There's
remember.
NIMS 700, ICS 100, 200, 300, and 400.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are the trainings that were mandated by the state a long time ago. Staff has all taken them, and we all have our certificates. You as board members can take them whenever you want and at your leisure. If you want me to get somebody in here for either at night instead of doing a meeting, we have a training. We can do that as well. That's completely up to you. I could definitely look into it.
Yeah.
I already took them all.
Again?
I have a photographic memory.
Why don't you see what's available and then decide something,
The other thing is just to make us aware of, how North Andover Public Safety would implement an incident command situation.
Okay.
Well, we have an emergency commander. I'm blanking on his name now. I can see him.
The emergency management director is Jeff Coco.
Yes, Jeff Coco.
So he does most of the emergency management stuff in conjunction
He'd be
with
willing to come in and talk.
police and fire.
Maybe he's a trainer.
Right.
I bet he is.
I think that would be something that would benefit us and benefit the town.
Okay. I can reach out to Jeff and talk to him, find out. I've actually been trying to get together with him recently to go over some of just the general emergency plans that we have in town here.
Well, while you're talking about trash, did you, are we now enforcing the placards?
No.
Police?
Nope, not yet. I'm getting the signboard, and I'm gonna get trained on the signboard, I'm gonna get it out for a test. I'm gonna meet with the programming company and the programmer.
No, I'm talking about the police would stop trash trucks.
Once we get the signboard up and running, the RFID stuff taken care of, then we're gonna also implement the police enforcement of it, which will use this tracking software to help with that.
All right.
So,
But before that, though, they would, if they saw a trash truck that didn't have the appropriate placard, they'd stop them and write them a ticket.
they haven't been doing that. I'm not sure why. I think I have to meet with them and work on it. They were supposed to be getting money for doing it. I don't know if that money hasn't been getting to them or what the situation is. And I think with the changing of the guard, I think some things may have gone by the wayside or wasn't implemented previously.
Well, all the work we did on the trash management, let me know. I'll go with you down to the police department if you're going to have a meeting. I don't
Okay.
mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That whole umbrella situation has been, over years, been sort of a what do we say it? A time consumer. That would,
Okay, yes.
and it would be good to get something in place rather than letting it just all fizzle away, because
Mm-hmm.
I think if we polled the community, you might hear different things, but it had a lot of enthusiasm in the community when it was first put out, and I think it's probably until something overtly is done that we should do our level best to maintain it.
Okay, absolutely. And I did meet with the programmer a couple months ago, and I spoke to the software company a few weeks ago. I'm trying to set up a date to all get together and get me up to speed on everything, from the regulations to the enforcement to the RFID program in general, and it's definitely gonna get there.
Vaccines. That's a public health thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm full of anecdotes. So I was talking with a patient about something unrelated to vaccination, and I noticed that his spouse, who was with him, was very uncomfortable, moved very deliberately, and I just said, you know, what's going on? And the story that I got from them was she had the shingles, and it just never got better.
Wow.
And it's basically kind of turned her into an invalid, and it's really affected her quality of life. And so I asked her about it, and the husband was actually very angry about the whole situation. He's like, well, we've had this particular primary care doctor for years, and not once did they ever mention that this could have been prevented. And here's somebody who's living with the consequences. Older couple. So I know that there's a lot of controversy with vaccination with regard to children. Some parents just don't want it done and things like that. But I think that the evidence is really strong for the types of vaccinations for the older people in our community, including the pneumococcal vaccination. There's two of them. The shingles vaccination, not always covered. It sometimes is a cost. I remember we had subsidized that cost for really anybody who wanted it over the age of 55 a few years back. I don't know if we still have a revolving fund.
Well, if I remember, Debbie would kind of set it up, and she'd have a pre-registration of a clinic, and we'd fund up to whatever, 10 or 20 or some number at a time, or however many she got registered for, because you have to pre-order and pre-purchase, and they're
Right.
limited shelf life. So, but we allocate from one of the revolving funds the money for it. You might want to kind of. Last time we asked her, she still does. She still makes some vaccinations available. I know she's doing shingles right now, but yeah.
Well, the seasonal flu, you
Yeah.
can go into CVS and pay $10. I mean, I'm not so worried about the access to that. That's fairly out there.
Right.
A lot of people don't think about the pneumococcal vaccine, and certainly
The pneumococcal and the shingles.
the shingles are, I mean, those are I don't meet the age
Right.
criteria, but as soon
Yeah.
as I do, I would go and get that shingles vaccine,
Yeah.
and seeing how devastating
agree.
it can be.
I know that there was definitely, in years past, issues with the cost. I know there was, it is fairly expensive, so I think there was definitely issues with that, and buying the vials, and then having the people that actually charge, I think was probably an issue, but I can talk to Debbie about that, and I'm all for making this available at any of the flu clinics, or schedule and have specific clinics for these.
Right.
Is something that I think is well within our means.
There may be a way to hold the cost down if there's a way if people have insurance, there's no reason that it couldn't be billed to their insurance. But to have some supply for people
Yep.
who don't have insurance coverage,
Right.
as a way of, getting more seniors vaccinated.
I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that most people do want, and if they have access to it, then. I think
Well, if
it's-
they know how devastating the complications can be,
Yeah.
not just the pain, if they get it on the face, it can cause blindness,
Well, okay.
it can cause hearing loss if you get it in the ear, it's pretty nasty disease in some circumstances. In other people, it's a rash that goes away, but,
Okay.
could say the same thing about Zika virus. Most people have a mild flu-like illness, and then some people have microcephaly.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
as soon as there's a vaccine available, I'm sure it'll be highly sought after.
Yeah, definitely. We've touched upon a pretty good number of these. Anything else that you guys want to add to it, just to, for future discussions, or?
Well, I think the drug drop-off boxes, the 15, and the opioid, there was one that was about the opioid task force. I think those are things we could consider down the road. There was just a big article, I think, yesterday in the paper, in the Eagle Tribune, about Methuen, or Haverhill put a needle drop box in the police station, and actually, we do have it in North Andover,
Yep.
in the police station, just a matter of location and access and knowledge of it.
Okay.
But we've seen this before. They're not as easy as they sound, because you have to deal with security of it and monitoring and emptying it and
Yep.
the whole process of what to do with the stuff that comes out of it. And right now, the one in the police station, the opioid task force, I don't know if anything substantially has happened with that lately, whether it had a physician on it or not. My concern for a while has been on local opioid task forces, if there's a certain amount of reinventing the wheel going on, and where the emphasis is on concern versus actually making substantial ground on fixing the problem, so to speak.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what's happened with the task force lately. I'm not on it, but I used to get the emails about it, but I don't know. Ed isn't here. He's our official appointee to it.
Right.
I haven't seen anything from him in a while, so maybe we can send him a message and ask if anything has transpired lately.
I don't think the task force has met in the past couple months. I can reach out and see what is, what's planned, and anything that's being worked on. I can definitely try to find out for you.
I'm sorry, you were on a more regional opioid task force, right? So
Yes.
is there anything going on at that level, or?
Right now, the regional group is looking to plan an event at the end of September. It's going to be, I believe, September 24th or 25th. It's a Saturday. Let me just get the calendar up. It's going to be a regional event. It's going to be held in Methuen, and it's going to have a lot of September 24th at the Methuen East Middle School, the Methuen Donald P. Timoney School. It's going to have a pretty good array of vendors and people that can give out resources. It's going to have a speaker that was actually on TV. I forget her name, but she was in an American Ninja Warrior. So she was on that TV show. She's from this area, and she's going to be one of the guest speakers who also went through some addiction issues, as well as a play put on by the Improbable Players. which is a group of actors that are all in recovery that do skits and plays about the whole ordeal of addiction and recovery. So a new spin on things versus just guest speakers having a play. There'll be a few other things too. There'll be, food, there'll be raffle and things like that too. So that's what's going on in that, looking to do some education and some outreach right now.
What was that date? Can you say the 24th?
Yep, it'll be September 24th. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be from 11 to 2, I believe. And I'll have more information on that as it gets sooner too. We'll put things on the website and get things kind of sent around. We did actually go in and meet with the Department of Public Health, met with the commissioner of the DPH in Boston, as well as the director of the Bureau of Substance Abuse and the deputy chief of staff for the Department of Public Health about getting funding, looking for more outreach, looking for more ideas. I had a great meeting with them about 3-4 weeks ago. So that was definitely a good thing to go down there and meet with that level of the state government. So ongoing, definitely ongoing.
Very good.
I like those tips you put together on the mosquito, the sports tips.
Oh, thank you.
I like
Yeah.
that. I saw that online.
Press releases.
I liked it. Yeah, very nice.
Trying to get more of this stuff going and getting stuff out there.
Yeah, no, I think that was right on.
Thank you. Yeah, I did include them in your packets as well.
In Massachusetts and New Hampshire, just FYI, you two docs know this, but the public probably doesn't. They have a prescription drug monitoring program. They have one in New Hampshire, they have one in Massachusetts, and I believe now, if you live in New Hampshire and you go to Massachusetts, you have access to both. They're trying to make it contiguous states, and
Emphasis on trying there.
trying. And it allows the doctors, the pharmacists, to pull up your name, and it will show them the controlled substance prescriptions you've had filled, the name, quantity, dosage form, and where you've gone to get it. So that's a good program to at least cut down on me going to 6 other pharmacies, because now it shows. Now it's apparent if I go to multiple pharmacy hopping looking for opiates or whatever other drugs. So I just wanted to put that out there. So far it's working. I know some docs that have unfortunately had some patients show up. It shows where you've been, but it'll also show if you've been to multiple pharmacies, which is really a big deal.
Right. Okay. I guess one thing I want to touch upon is in the back of your packet with the paperclip, I just put a little outline together of board discussion topics for today, just to give you a couple of quick little things. Should be in the back, maybe?
Yeah.
No, yeah, you got it.
I think it's the last page.
Oh, yeah, the very last page, after the press releases.
Got it, yep.
So, just a few things that we've done recently. We did these press releases. One thing that I'm looking for too is number 2, which is additional topics. If you guys have anything in particular you want me to do some articles on or some outreach on, email me, call me, text me, let me know. I'm always looking for things to kind of get out there. So these are 3 that we did as the top 3, number 1. Just did those. Those are some things that were going around. I figured it was perfect timing here for the bat and rabies one, because when it gets really hot like that, sometimes the bats come out of the attic and make it into people's bedrooms. So, people need to know what to do. And then the back to school safety, and then the mosquito and the Zika awareness articles. Just 3 little quick ones.
I got to share a story, about a bat,
Okay.
because this was great.
Okay.
This was great. This is after I moved in to North Andover in our home. Went to bed middle of the night, I felt something on my pillow. I didn't know what it was. I figured it was my hair. So when I woke up in the morning, it was still there. I looked to the side. There was a bat sleeping on my pillow.
Must have a nice
Next to my hair.
Was it a my pillow?
I did what every person would do. I screamed, got up, and started flying around the room, and I got a sheet, a bed sheet, to grab it, and I let it out the window. I'm not going to. What an experience. That's all I can tell you.
All right. I'll skip number 3 until the end. I got more information on that. I did schedule a senior center discussion for November 7th. I know Joe had asked me to make contact with Gail over at the senior center and see what they had available for their Monday morning talks. I'm going to go there on Monday, November 7th, and give a little presentation or discussion with the seniors. I haven't picked any topics yet. I may do a joint effort with the fire department and have them do some winter safety tips. Just because every year you have issues with space heaters, carbon monoxide, no heat complaints and no heat issues. So I asked them if they'd be willing to do that, and they said yes, definitely. So they'll kind of piggyback with stuff that I want to talk about, just to get information out there and have a good discussion and answer questions, things like that. I also met with Brian Frazier from the NACAM .org, and going to start hopefully working with him on getting some things on the television stations as well, just for PSAs or anything like that. I'm going to start getting some additional stuff out there as well. Number 6, you had mentioned in one of your emails you wanted to discuss regarding dogs swimming in the reservoir and having issues with that. I haven't come up with any solutions on that one yet. I know they have signs posted out there, and you see them as well, but when you see people out there, you always mention it.
Let's post it in dog talk. You get a speaker and it goes woof, 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 and it'll understand.
So for future discussions, if you guys want to think about that for this coming spring and summer, your issue with TBI is on there. And just make sure we're all set with there. If anything else you want to talk about. Elm Street, I have spoken and been working with Cindy Allen. I haven't been out there in a little while, but I've talked to her. They are doing some of the finalized little items that were left. Her daughter just got married on Sunday, so she's been a little preoccupied with that. Her tenant has moved out, so it's just her son living there by himself. So I'm going to be meeting with her probably within the next couple of weeks to go over and see what is left and what's finalized and kind of get that off of our books. But last time I was out there, she had pretty much taken care of almost everything. So there was a few minor things left, cracked window, a couple cracked tiles, things like that, but nothing as major as it was when we first went out there, when they went out there last year. So they have done a lot of work, which is good, but I do want to get that off the books and get that finalized. So at least she's working with us now, and she doesn't run away whenever I call her or email her.
Good for you. She likes you. She doesn't like. She likes you.
No. I am looking into. Yeah, right. I am looking into spraying for this coming the end of the summer, beginning of fall. I know that's when Triple E is most prevalent, and obviously with everything.
You know, I sent Brian a question. Generally, around now, just usually a week or so before school starts, we talk to the New England Northeast Mosquito District about doing the spray of the ball fields and so on. So that's kind of been with their suggestion and assent. It's generally not been a big deal for them to, slot it into their work schedule.
And I talked to them after you had emailed me, and our numbers are down. The entire regional numbers are down, which is good. They have no problem being able to fit in a quick barrier spray, just to do around the fields and things like that, just to have that added extra protection for a few weeks going into the fall.
Right, it's been so hot and dry, it's not been mosquito summer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually been pretty good. And then there was your dog walking station at Old Town Center. And then you emailed me about septic approvals. I didn't get a list together. I didn't have a chance, but we've done about 6 or 7 this summer. Nothing major. There's the one with the two lots that are being created that need those slight variances from the local regulations. They didn't get their plans in time for this meeting. I do have them in the office, and basically what it was just looking for some due diligence on their part. They were requesting a waiver, but didn't prove to me they actually needed it without working some different lot lines, because they're creating lots, 2 out of 3. So taking 3 lots, making 2 bigger lots, 2 houses, 2 systems, but they needed a local regulation variance. They didn't prove to me that they actually needed it for these houses by different lot designs, different house layouts, different septic systems, whether it's some sort of innovative technology that cuts down on the footprint of the system. Basically move them as far away from the wetlands as possible. Get what you can for setbacks, and then we can go from there. They didn't prove that until last week when they went through several different designs and different, their whole methodology and their reasoning behind it. Basically what they're doing is they're doing trench and stone systems, which are conventional, and they work the best and last the longest, versus things with pumps or infiltrators or some of the new technologies that just have more maintenance and more chance of failure. So going through the different designs with the different types of systems, they do have the right system, and they did get it as far away as possible to meet with the well setbacks, the road setbacks, the house setbacks, and the wetland setbacks. So that's pretty much done. I was going to actually ask you guys if I can give them an in-house approval after going through all of this with them, instead of making them come back in a month to go before the board to do the public hearing. What I'd like to do is do the public hearing in my office with the engineer and the abutters that had questions, and just sit down with them and kind of discuss it at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday when they're home and kind of kicking around and out and about, or even at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, but not during a public meeting. I don't know if you guys are okay with that, or if it's something you guys want to come back before you next month. They'll be here next month. But
When will the system be ready for that public hearing at the office, if you wanted to do that?
I talked to an abutter today who asked about it. I said they weren't on again. They may be on next month. I only had one person really calling about it.
Yeah.
So it's a woman who lives next door, doesn't have a problem with the system, just wants to ask some questions. So I said I would give her a call and find out when she's available, and let her know, and let she can tell anybody else that she thinks is interested. So it would be within the next couple of weeks.
Are you looking for approval to have the public hearing at your
For me to
office,
have the
or-
meeting at the office with the abutters that are interested and the engineer, instead of making them come here to a meeting.
It's different.
We've delegated that in the past to the health director. Usually after we've been informed of a problem, we've had him, discussed it with the engineer, and we said to Susan, this, conditioned on this, and this, and we'll give you our administrative approval to confirm as long as those conditions are met. I don't really have an objection.
So it's one local, what is it that has to be?
It's a 100-foot setback to the wetlands. Title 5 is 50, the local is 100. They're in between 50 and 100, so it's still allowable by the state. Mill River's approved it. They're all set with it. The only thing that we had questions with was alternative designs and alternative layouts. What's going to be the best and the most maximum feasible compliant design that they could get. And they did that through trial and error, and with a lot of prodding from us, they finally actually did that and gave us some different layouts. So,
And our paid consultant, Mill River, has basically signed off on it.
we've reviewed the plans.
Has it gone through wetlands? They've looked at it? Is it sort of a
Conservation,
conservation?
they go into conservation next once they get our approval. It does meet conservation setbacks as well,
Mhm.
so I don't see that being an issue. The house layout, driveways, grading, septic systems are all being designed with conservation in mind as well as health. So that's why they had some tricky issues with this site, just because there are wetlands on site.
Mhm.
But they did kind of take all that into account when they're going through their different layouts, designs, and the entire site changing.
Don't public hearings have to be in public in front of the board? I mean, you can just meet with the people, Ken. Does this require a public hearing?
No, not through Title V. Through our local regulation, it
It's
did.
required that the abutters are notified and
Yes.
they can present to the
Yes.
hearing, which he's saying he could have in his office.
What happens is when you go for a variance, you have to
It's
notify
not
the
truly a
abutters.
public hearing where it's announced to,
Right, you have to open it and then close it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
It has to be advertised in the paper and...
not for this, because it's not a...
No, I'm just saying that a
Right.
public hearing in
Right.
general.
Yes, so
needs
this
to have
was...
Public notice.
Notices went out to the abutters that there was going to be a variance for this property. So they all wanted to know what it was. So they all started calling.
Okay.
So they're going to have a public hearing, but they haven't been able to get their plans done. And they're going through this circle of designs, layouts, alterations. And so, since they were notified, there's a few abutters that want to see the plans and ask questions and meet with the engineer. That's all.
I just want to make sure you do it so it doesn't, it's legal after
Yes.
it's finished.
Yes, it's legal.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
So if you hold a public hearing, and we go on our way, and it's December, and then somebody says, hey, that was an illegal act because it wasn't in front of the board,
The only reason why we're gonna have a public hearing is because he notified the abutters that there was a local variance.
all right.
So I can look into the legalities of it with.
I mean, I don't have a problem, it's just, I just want to
Yeah,
make sure
no,
that
I
it doesn't kick us in the
completely agree.
butt.
I just don't want to make them wait another
Right.
month to make the abutters come out at night when there's only one that just wants to talk to the engineer.
I'm just curious, did we ever get around to hiring a town council?
Not yet.
Not yet, so we're still using Tom.
Tom's in on Mondays. He's in the break room for a
Mhm.
couple hours, and you can go in and ask him questions at your leisure. I was actually just talking to him yesterday about a couple different things. But I can bring this up to him and find out for sure before I schedule anything.
Well, we've never done these kind of things under this public hearing session, and we've never advertised them. It's just, you have to, I think we're required to send a postcard or notify the abutters. I mean, you can check, but I don't think it's really an issue.
I can check, but that's what it was. He was notifying the abutters that there was a variance. And then a few neighbors
I would
wanted to
say
see
to
what it was.
confirm that it's reasonable and within acceptable boundaries of practice, it's okay to go ahead and do it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a problem as long as it doesn't bite us, that's all.
I wouldn't let it come back to it. I would definitely make sure everything was done.
You can also call Cheryl Sabar,
Okay. She emailed me yesterday.
wealth of
I'll
knowledge.
email her back again.
Yeah. Do you have to vote on that, or just let Brian?
I don't think it requires a vote.
I think that we should vote on that.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't you state the motion?
So I'm saying be careful on this.
Move that the board designate its administrative power to Brian for the purposes of a local update on the said property. Local upgrade.
Local upgrade, yes.
Local upgrade.
Yep.
Including the discussion, is it, that would include the discussion,
Which discussion?
the butters coming before you.
Yes, yes. That would include the abutter questions and discussion about the system approval.
Okay, so that's what the power would include, be all inclusive then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're basically delegating our authority
Okay.
for this particular item.
That's fine, I second. I don't have a problem.
All right.
You seconding that?
Yes, I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Just want to get this thing moving. I've been putting them off for so long.
Okay.
And then number 12 is the emergency management team meeting. I met with the fire chief and his, Jeff DeShane, who's in charge of all their emergency planning, and we get up with the fire department. It was a great meeting. The chief's new. Jeff is fairly new as well. So it was great to sit down and kind of go over town plans with them. And it was Deb and myself went and met with them for an hour and a half. And we're going to start getting back on board with more regular meetings to discuss all the town policies and plans for all hazards, basically. So from infectious disease to, fireworks incidents and things like that. So it was great to start that up again, and I guess it hasn't been done in a long time.
Right.
So it's good to get back on board and get everybody back on the same page, just so they have my phone number when they can call me at midnight.
Good idea.
I haven't paid my
Excellent
phone bill.
idea.
But
Okay, yeah.
I didn't pay my phone bill.
under that umbrella, the ICS can come in and all,
Yes.
kind of, a lot of things roll up in
Yep,
that, so.
exactly. So getting back and reviewing the SEMP, which is the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, and the addendums that we have as a Board of Health for infectious disease outbreaks, things like that. So we just had our first meeting last week. Long overdue, but at least we've started it, and we're going to start doing that a little bit more often to get things kind of ironed out a little bit. And that leads me to the one that I skipped, which is number 3. I gave you guys a packet here. This is our latest and greatest Zika update. And this is some information that I pulled together for you. It's a few different things in here. The first in the top is the state email blast they send out every so often for just a quick little rundown of the calls they're getting, any advancements in information. They do usually update the numbers. As of right now, in the continent of the U.S., there have been 36 locally transmitted cases in the United States. So that's definitely getting up there. It's definitely increasing. There's been locally transmitted cases in Wynwood, Florida, and now Miami Beach, Florida, which are right across a little inlet from each other. So it's starting to increase a little bit. Obviously, with knowledge of the type of mosquitoes that it's carrying in their environment, their habitats, and the fact that it's now endemic to that area, they're looking like they think it's going to definitely spread a little bit more, and they think it would probably spread to most of the Gulf states. Obviously, that's a concern for anybody traveling down there and for people that actually live there. You guys have all been seeing the news reports as to the things that can happen and the symptoms for unborn and newborns, for pregnant females. I think the fact that it's transmitted sexually is a huge concern for public health professionals, because it's not something that people show symptoms of, or if you're down there with you guys on a guy's weekend fishing on the Gulf Coast somewhere, you might not wear mosquito repellent the entire time you're there. And then you come home, and so there's new guidelines out there about, people want to get pregnant, partners, traveling, things like that. So I'm going to try to get most of the stuff up on our website soon. I did give you guys some information here on the actual mosquitoes themselves. I think this is very important for people who live here.
No, this is great.
There are 2 different types of mosquitoes that carry the Zika virus currently. And with viruses like this, and with the nature of mosquitoes and bloodborne pathogens, never say never. But as of right now, these are the mosquitoes that do transmit Zika virus. It's the Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. They are both tropical mosquitoes, which have limited range and limited tolerances for cold. The Aedes aegypti is the primary spreader of the Zika virus. And go through the information I gave you here. One of the things about this particular mosquito is it's a sneaky mosquito, and it does, they call small blood meals. So it doesn't feed on just one host. It will feed multiple times on multiple different things. So animals, birds, people. It gets a lot of small little, appetizers around an area. And that's one of the reasons why it spreads the Zika virus so efficiently. They call it a super spreader. The Aedes albopictus is in the same family. However, this is a much more aggressive mosquito that is more of a gorger. So it doesn't do as many blood meals. It's aggressive, and it gets bigger meals before it lays its egg. So maybe 1, maybe 2 meals tops before it goes and lays its egg. So it doesn't spread the Zika virus nearly as efficiently as the Aedes aegypti, but it still spreads it, it still carries it. These two actually compete with each other for habitat and breeding space. So they don't cancel each other out, but they do limit each other's range and populations. The Aedes albopictus doesn't carry the Zika virus nearly as much as the aegypti, but does have a wider range and can tolerate more temperate climates. So they say that this mosquito can come up further from the south into the mid-Atlantic during the hot summer months only. And they think that the eggs that the albopictus will lay will die in the winter, and obviously limit the endemic nature of the Zika virus coming up further into the temperate climates. So I gave you guys a lot of information on that, but that's essentially what this says. These are your dengue and your yellow fever mosquitoes, which obviously are endemic all around the world, but in hotter climates with less infrastructure and things like that. So your dengue, yellow fever, your chikungunya, some of these Asian and African viruses that have been around for a long time don't actually come up here because these mosquitoes don't tolerate our type of climate. So they say we're not going to have Zika virus up here in Massachusetts being spread locally by mosquitoes. Obviously, with people traveling and coming back, you do have the incidence rates up here of people that do have it. However, it's not being spread locally by mosquitoes.
So our local mosquitoes can't really spread this.
Correct. I'd say never say never, because who knows how viruses act and what they can do in terms of spreading and extending their own, range and the regions they're in. But
Ability to carry a vector.
correct. So with the virus with the Zika virus mimicking and being the same type of virus as dengue and yellow, those aren't endemic up here, and they haven't ever gotten up here in the mosquito population. So that's what they're thinking, but they do think it will spread to the Gulf states and all of the hotter climates that are down around, the Caribbean, the Gulf, and obviously the ones that is already endemic in South America, Central America, Asia, and Africa. So to give you guys some information on this, I've been talking to mosquito control a little bit about some of this stuff. There's no real warning up here yet, but obviously travel warnings, I think, is the big thing that we should kind of focus on. People going to these other places where it is endemic and it is being spread locally, I think is the warning that we have to start concentrating on up here a little more. So a little light pleasure reading for later. I did a couple highlights of just some of the interesting stuff that I saw in here that if you don't want to read the whole thing, just kind of cruise through a little bit. And that is it for my Zika update. I don't know if you guys have any questions on it or any ideas or recommendations.
No, I think if it's good information, you can get accessible on the website. So if, again, as it's more in the news, whether it's up here or not, people are going to want to look for information about it. So when you get a call in the department, you can direct them to the site instead of having to figure out a way to send it out. I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Good. Nice job, Brian.
And then I think the last thing that I had was just a letter that we had sent out, just copied you guys on
Let's see that.
the last housing letter for
Yeah.
some unsanitary conditions. There was some issues with an elderly couple, and the carpeting in a certain living area had become kind of stained and soiled and needed some immediate cleaning. So that is actually being worked on now. I believe the house has been freed of most of the trash and most of the unsanitary conditions except for the carpet. I believe that is going to be removed this weekend. So I spoke to a couple of the family members already, and the owner of the house actually tonight. So I will be out there probably within the next couple of days just to check And then after this coming weekend, I'll go back out to make sure that the major portion was done over the weekend.
Good.
And that is all that I have for any updates and any discussion. I think the discussion topics that we discussed tonight, I know they're not in order, but if you guys have any inclinations to which ones you want, you think are the top priority, let me know what you think they are. Just give me a call or send me an email, and I'll start chipping away at these things. I think these are all good topics to kind of touch upon and start looking into and working on.
Well, I think some of it sort of does itself in terms of timing, like there's sort of natural, certain things are easier to do quickly, and certain things require a little bit of research and so
Yeah.
on. I don't know if you got this announcement yet, but I got an announcement from the town manager's office that on September the 20th, there will be called a seminar from the State Ethics Commission, talking about a conflict of interest seminar at the Stevens Estate, that they're encouraging appointed and elected board members to attend. It's the evening of September the 20th at 5:30 p.m. Food and refreshments will be provided. That's September the 20th at 5:30. And I just got this yesterday. I can forward this around.
Okay. I got that as well. I did put it on my calendar. I will. I have it on my computer as well. I can forward it to you guys.
Okay.
Good.
Tomorrow.
Very good.
Since there's food there, yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
Any other discussions? Any other?
I think we're pretty good.
I think we're